else.
And some of
Well-
us just fake it till we make it.
That's right.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Tangerine SDR and ham side technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week, well, I have a nice little, I'm trying to get it where it shows. There it is. Board arrived in the mail, so getting ready to do some testing and things. Some others on the list have been getting boards. I know Tom told me he got his. So we're trying to get those working and doing the different, figuring out how to make that part of it work. So it's been a few years, but it's really nice to have things changing. So next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2 NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate it. I've been very busy this week. I got on the ham radio for fun this weekend. I participated in the Pennsylvania QSO party, and I made almost 300 QSOs on Saturday night, which I was very excited about. And I happened to work K Craigie N3KN and Steve Floyd W4YHD and a few other people I knew, which was really fun. So let's see. So working on the VLF proposal with Jonathan, and I'm anxiously awaiting the Tangerine SDR development board, which will hopefully be sitting in my mailroom when the university opens back up on Wednesday. W10F, back to net.
Well, very good. And next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening, all, and Dylan, welcome to the group. Not a whole lot to report here. I've been doing things that are not ham radio related in any way, unfortunately. Have been continuing to watch the grape data. I don't remember whether I mentioned this last weekend and whether I even noticed at that point. On the 30th, I had both the signal strength and the Doppler shift zeroed out and set close to zero, almost no change whatsoever from about 1300 UTC to about 0100 UTC on the first. Don't know if anybody else saw that or not.
Not sure. And you saw some change, so you're pretty convinced it was working?
Yeah, and I didn't do anything differently, and all of a sudden it started working again. That's the first thing I thought when I saw it, thought that gee, I must have some failure of some sort, but couldn't see anything, couldn't find anything wrong, and it mysteriously started working again, unless there was a strong 10 megahertz signal that cropped up for some reason. That's the only thing I can think of that might have caused that. I don't know where that 10 megahertz would have come from without me knowing it was there.
I don't know.
It actually was not that strong. I see signal was a good bit stronger from WWB a good bit of the time.
Jim, that was on the 1st of October?
The 30th of September, and it went over to the 1st by an hour or so.
Okay.
I've seen that same kind of thing happen, but only for an hour or two. This is the first time I've seen it for about 11 or 12 hours. So I don't know. Anyway, back to net.
Okay. Well, next on the list is AA8K, Michael. Welcome back. Michael usually doesn't see up. He says hi. And
He also reminded me to properly insulate my ground rod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you remember to do that.
Made sure it was properly insulated.
Next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, thanks. Good evening to the net. Okay, in my shack, I installed a new Q5 signal 2-meter transverter that gives me the ability to get on sideband with 150 watts and other things like that for 2-meter low signal work. So we got the big antenna out there. So it's playing a little bit with tropospheric ducting and meteor scatters and things like that on 2-meter. Anyway, got with the students on this project, got with the students this week and got them busy on working on with our beta testing that we have going on. We see that very easily you can create gigantic files, spectrum files, digital RF files that can run into the gigabytes, and it's not convenient to try and download one of those because it will just it's just too much capacity requirement. So we're going to put together a thing when somebody clicks on one of those, it's going to have a whole different application that comes up that gives the person the chance to pick out what day they want to download. Typically, people want to do it a day at a time, or the ability to plot it right online on the central control system. So we'll have plotting software for both the digital RF signal data as well as the magnetometer. So that's the project, rather that's what the students are working on now. So we'll have something to talk about regarding that over the course of the next month or two. Oh, so back to net.
That will be fantastic.
Next on the list is Bob Strickland, and I've seen your call sign a couple of times and I can't remember it off the top of my head. So go ahead.
Yeah, the call is N5BRG. And yeah, I just wanted to check in with this group tonight and see what was going on, see if I could learn something from you guys, and look forward to hearing all these great things.
Very good. Let's see. Next on the list, we have David, KE5DPZ. Go ahead, David.
Good evening to all on the group. Don't really have anything to add, just listening in. Would be curious to know what the students that Bill has are, what programming software they're using, because I'm an old-fashioned person and I don't know programming, and so I'm trying to learn Python, but that's a really wide field. It's like trying to study 1 yard of the 100-yard field. And so I'm looking for kind of suggestions as to what would be good to study to properly be able to digest the data that we're going to be bringing in from the different radios and sensors that we have out there. Anyway, KE5DPZ, back to net.
Yeah. Bill, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. The plan for dealing with the data that comes off the Tangerine, it's going to come in a format which is exceedingly difficult to work with, which took us I've been doing this for 50 years, not exaggerating there, and it took me a while to figure out how to do this. So let me suggest this. You're going to be up against real frustration unless you do the following. We're going to provide software that can give you with, it's in Python, it's going to be commented. So start with a working example and then branch off from there would be my suggestion. So I have stuff that will plot these spectrums, and it's not perfect by any means. It's still got a lot more work we got to do on it to get it to do what we really want, to make it look as nice as it could. But anyway, that's my suggestion. We'll have some software which we're going to put on the website, and so you can download it and play with it. We'll also make it available to run on the website so that you can see it without necessarily having to do it on your own, but you can also get the software and play with it on your own if you as a learning process. So that's the plan.
Eventually it'll probably be on GitHub and, you know, maybe down as a Jupyter notebook or Jupyter lab project.
Yeah, yeah. GitHub probably. GitHub probably. I don't know whether we're gonna. It boils down to how much time do you have. Whether we develop it as a Jupyter notebook, I don't know, but we'll certainly put it on GitHub.
I just put in the chat a YouTube video that is a Python pandas data analysis tutorial that was recommended. So you might want to check that out. That's not going to be specific to this particular project, but it's going to give you a number of the fundamentals you need for doing data analysis in Python. And that particular one will probably be most useful for looking at magnetometer data and GREEP version 1 data. But the general, and it's foundational for other things you'd be doing that are more advanced.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I don't want to take up any more of the time of the group. Thank you again. KE5DPZ, back to net.
Okay, next on the list is David McGaw, N1 HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening to the group. Well, main work these days is getting stuff ready to send down to the ice. We actually have a visit of South Pole technicians, last year's and next year's, this next season, coming tomorrow to take a look at our stuff and get a update on what they can do to get our experiments working down at South Pole. I'm looking forward to working with a development system when they get sent out. And also I hope I got on the list for testing the new magnetometers, but we'll work on that. I've been working a lot of 10 meters the last few days. There's been some really good openings from everywhere, from locally down to New Zealand and Australia, believe it or not. So yeah, working the amateur radio as well as the professional radio. Back to
6
net.
meters was open today. 6 meters.
Oh, wow. I didn't catch
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Thank you.
very good. Next on the list is Dylan in KN6VW. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, my name is Dylan Romero, from Tennessee. Let's see. I had something. Oh, that's what it was. I was curious, are you guys using Python to program the SDR?
That's the user end of the code chain.
I think
Oh,
there's
so
a
it's
there's a
multiple.
number of different languages that are being used. At the core
okay.
of the SDR, they're going to be using Verilog, which I've never programmed in Verilog, but people that I talk to who are on here, they will tell me that it's much more thinking like designing a circuit rather than just programming normally. I do use Python all the time. What we would normally use Python for is the later data analysis and visualization, and also for kind of like gluing things together to make the different pieces run together. But a lot of the core computational work is probably going to be done in Verilog or C.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for answering
You-
that. Sorry.
You will hear more about that a little bit later.
Okay. So I'm from Tennessee, and I guess one of the things that I've been wanting to do is get one of those SDRs. Well, find an SDR that I can use with a mobile ham shack that I'm building in a bus. So once this comes out, I think I'm definitely going to get that. So thank you very much. Send it back to net control.
Okay, fine business and welcome. Next on the list is James, KG4DSG. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did. You hear me?
Yes.
Nothing much here. We got some equipment failures in the house. Dead monitor and a smart TV that just got a lobotomy. It's losing apps. Things disappearing. So other than that, it's been an interesting start to the week. Back to the net.
Well, good luck with that. Usually, other people in your family are not as tolerant of radio stuff working or not working. Next on the list, we have Jay, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, hello, everybody. And Nathaniel, glad to hear that you had a good time in the contest this weekend and really got to play radio. I mean, no distractions or anything else like that. So yeah, really cool. The only thing that I've been really working on this week intermittently was trying to get FT8 to play with Ham Radio Deluxe in my radio since I made some changes in the shack. So that's been my big project so far. Really hasn't accomplished, it really isn't playing exactly correct, but I'm still working on it, and oh well, it'll happen. Other than that, you're still active in Society of Automotive Engineers stuff, and have generator maintenance scheduled for tomorrow. Had to get the factory out to actually do some software. I think I've got either a software crash or a hardware failure on the controller board in the generator. So other than that, nothing new here. 7-3, all back to net.
7 well, thank you. And next on the list is Joe, W7 LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. Oh boy, busy here with public service events and ARES stuff. But I took a look at my plots from the 30th of September and the 1st, and they look entirely normal with one major exception. And let me share screen here real quickly if I can remember how to do this. You do that and then share. And oh gosh, I don't know how to get rid of this this one.
There it is.
Okay, but okay, I see you and others on it. Can you see the plot on the right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. At 2000, there was a pretty significant M9 or something flare, but there is nothing at all unusual about this plot on the left, which was the 30th of September, and the one on the right looks entirely normal, except there was a period that I was using the antenna for something else, and then the flare in the afternoon. So that's Jim, it's nothing unusual here. And that's pretty much what I've got. Now, how do I, go up here and stop share?
Thanks
Okay.
for letting me know.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Jonathan Rizzo, KC3 EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. It's been a fairly busy week. I was working on the grant, the VLF grant proposal with Nathaniel. We worked on a budget. We worked on a statement of work, and we also worked on some of the text in the proposal. And I talked about my receiver design and system design, and also my outreach plans. So it's kind of like a mini personal space weather station, except this is for VLF. So there's actually quite a bit of work involved in this. And I also I also was able to use PowerPoint to make a really nice block diagram of the system that I have in mind. And I didn't realize how easy it was to actually use PowerPoint to make legible and functional block diagrams that actually look really good. So I wanted to include a figure in the proposal for a block diagram of the system. And also what I've been working on not amateur radio or VLF related, I am installing a satellite antenna I had this antenna for well over 10 years. And it's a KU band receive only antenna. And I'm going to be installing it probably next week. And it will be for some TV channels, mainly DWTV from Germany. That's Germany's international broadcaster. Here in Pennsylvania, they used to show that channel on our state government channel after hours, and that's where I kind of learned to enjoy the programming. They have news and world events and magazine shows and everything like that. But satellite antennas was also my other radio hobby that I engaged in when I was younger, about 10 years ago, and I'm it's nice to get back into it. One last quick thing, Joe, I am able to detect, or I was able to detect that solar flare October 1st on my VLF system. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Well, fine business. Next on the list, we have Jules, K2 KGJ. Go ahead, Jules.
Okay, Net, good evening. Busy week. Managed to get my COVID bivalent booster. Spent a couple of days getting a mobile van ready for the annual simulated emergency test, which was this past Saturday. Spent Saturday on that for the ARES group. And also finished off the first 50 of the plug spigots, 1.5 inch for the magnetometer housing project. And I need Scotty to tell me where to send them as well as the bill for it. So they're ready to go, and I need a shipping address and a billing address. And that's pretty much it for this week.
Well, fine business. We'll get to Scotty in just a minute here. Next on the list is Noel Pettit. Noel, you have a comment?
Unmute for just a second. No, sorry, joined late. Just keeping magnetometers going here, and hopefully see some of you at the AMSAT conference coming up in a week and a half.
Oh, okay. I want to, Scotty's down the list, but I'd like to call on Tom N5EG because Tom's been having some connection problems. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, good evening, Dave. Well, I have internet again tonight. Yeah, it's been 3 weeks without internet. Came today by FedEx was a replacement 75-foot cable, has USB Type-Cs on each end, but I think it's a custom connector. And it was the cable that was the problem, not the electronics. I was really surprised. I put the probability of a replacement cable fixing the problem at about 1%. And it was all properly strain relieved and everything. So I don't know why the cable failed. Anyway, so as of about 3 this afternoon, I have internet again. Yay.
Yeah.
I finished reading this book, which looks backwards. And that's the book that Bob Strickland loaned me at DCC on Verilog. Read the whole Verilog book, coded up the SPI bidirectional converter, and haven't yet got that into the code for the SDR. For the first time in a year, I fired up the SDR dev kit board, the FPGA board, and was not able to program it. Scotty helped me out figuring the right switches to flip. And I somehow recall that I didn't flip those, but at any rate, I set them the way Scotty said, and it programmed, so that's good. So even, let me see if we can see this over here. No, I can't get I can't get it close enough. At any rate, there's the dev kit on the corner of the table there, and it's got the Tangerine adapter board, receiver, and clock module plugged onto it. And I've been starting programming that again. So been kind of a wild week here. A lot going on. So back to the group.
So Tom, I also sent you a bunch of links to some Verilog code in the Open HPSDR repository. Did you get those?
I did. I downloaded it. The way that GitHub is set up, it's one single big commit. And so you have to pretty much download the entire repository as one file. And when you have internet, that's easy. When you don't have internet, there are some complications involved.
Yes.
At any rate, I got that and peeled out the Hermes code, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It appears to be fairly well written and well documented and pretty clean code. The problem is, of course, there is an awful lot of it to go through, and what we'll be doing will be structured differently, but I'll be going through that code, trying to figure things out. I did write a architecture document for the FPGA firmware and software and some of the key issues that we'll have and how the software can be structured, and then the test plan. And I've outlined phase 1A, 1B, and 1C test in the document, and basically start with the register reads and writes, then start with wideband vectors, and then start with a single narrowband channel and run all that into GNU radio modules and start measuring the receiver performance. So if you're interested, there is a document on the TangerinerSDR.com document repository. It's something like FPGA architecture or FPGA firmware architecture, something like along those lines.
I also sent you a link to a bunch of code snippets in Verilog, and I think there might be some, it might be old, but might be something useful in that as well.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go through that. I saw it, I could resolve it, but I haven't, the last week or so has been occupied with how do I get enough internet to get email?
Yes.
Which was another entire project in itself.
Yes, I was able to get a copy from Chung of the book that you were reading. So
okay, well, good. It's a good read. In going through it, there are 2 chapters on synthesis, and so Verilog that you can write that simulates is not necessarily Verilog that can be synthesized and turned into gates. And so there's a couple chapters that explain you might be able to write it, but it can't be turned into gates for the FPGA. So you have to kind of stick to a subset of Verilog.
okay, very good. Well, now we're down to Scotty, who just turned his camera off. WA2 DFI. Scotty, go ahead.
I got my dessert here. So yeah, so this week, not really a lot of progress, helping some people out to have questions. Anything I can do to help that, or have Verilog questions, feel free. I have some time available. And Jules, I sent you that email with the address and for the 2 addresses in it this morning. So I'm surprised you haven't got it by now. I sent it out at 11 o'clock our time, which should be about 2 o'clock your time. So
which address did you send it to?
Let's see. I sent it to the fairpoint.net, hillfox@fairpoint.net.
Okay, I didn't see
the right
it.
address.
No, that's correct. It should have gotten here. Let me go back and look. Go ahead. I'll check for it.
Okay. And what else? Yeah, and also I answered some questions that John Ackerman had on how he's planning to test without a DK board. And I don't know, have you heard from John
And
Nathaniel?
I have,
John did send me some emails, but I don't think I read them closely enough, so I probably need to pay attention to
Well,
his
I
emails.
told him you had a board, you'd send him if he wanted it, so it'd be up to him to ask if he wants it.
Okay.
Because he could do some of the debug directly without a board.
yes, I've been talking to John about doing some programming just on the clock modules, basically
Okay.
setting configuration parameters
Getting it set up to produce the clocks
So-
we want.
so that you can do that. And he wanted both, one that integrated with Tangerine and one that didn't.
Okay,
So so I had offered to help him with that coding. And it basically is using I²C to load some memory. Not much different than any other kind of programmer.
well, he has access to both the UART port and the I2C port.
Yep.
As well as the USB port on the
Right.
GPS, all on the board without using a DK kit.
Scotty, I just took another, I'm sorry, I just took another look and I don't see it. You might want to resend it.
Really? Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
That's very odd. Okay. Try to this new message. Okay. I will, and it's to hillfox@fairpoint.net, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now I did, well, actually I sent it, copied Bruce and Tom on it because they're where the stuff is going to go. And I had I left the video or the pictures attached because I thought they'd want to see those. You, of course, don't need to see them because they're yours. So anyway, I just sent it again. So.
Okay.
Scotty, is it possible to get the schematic for the clock module?
Yes.
I looked all through and I couldn't find one in any of our other documents, but
There should be one up on the website. I thought that there was.
I couldn't find a schematic.
Okay, we need to put that up on the website.
Well, if you send it to me, I'll put it on the website.
Okay, I'll
Did
do
John
that.
just give us a block diagram?
He gave us a block diagram and I need the schematic.
Well, I just sent John the schematic this morning to answer his questions.
Oh, okay. Well, he hasn't shared
Yeah.
that with me.
I sent him the schematic of the adapter and the clock module, figuring he probably will need both if he's gonna
Yes,
be working on it. So and you'll probably need the same thing. So,
yes.
but I can certainly.
And
send
if you
them-
want me to put them on the website, send them to me and I'll put them up.
Yeah, and it doesn't, the adapter doesn't really matter. We're not going to build any more of those, but that's fine. And the clock
But,
module, it's
well-
all open source anyway. So,
He was wondering what kind of code you put into the clock module.
what kind of code I put into it?
Or, yeah, for testing. Did you put
Um,
anything into the SI module?
No,
Okay,
I haven't.
That's
I
what he-
haven't done it.
that's what I
anything-
assumed, but
Yep.
he was unsure.
Yeah, no, they're version unprogrammed, whatever they come with.
Yep.
I think it's called the base program. It comes from the factory. So that's what's there. So, and I did, when I was answering his question, I did find something that gave me a little pause. We may have trouble with this. Is it turns out that of the two I2C address lines,
Yeah,
80 and 81, 81 does not have a pull-up on it, and we float it. So that
Oh.
might end up being a problem. We may end up having to put a wire on the board to ground just to make sure that
Okay.
doesn't float. And you could start out perhaps by trying both addresses and see where it floats to, but it needs to be hooked somewhere.
right.
And that's the I2C port that goes into the synthesizer. It's shared
Okay.
with the GPS and the synthesizer. Then there
Right.
is a UART that goes to the GPS only. And then there is the USB that goes to the GPS only.
Right,
So we should have no trouble with the GPS, but we might have some trouble with the synthesizer if we don't ground that pin. And
Right.
it's a 50 mil center. It's awful. So
Okay.
what I might do is I might take it down to our local CM and have that mod made. We'll get a little further down the road, see if there's anything else.
yes,
And I'll have the mod made and just swap them out to all the people that got them. and you
Okay.
send back the old one and I'll send you a new one with the mod on it.
right.
because it's really going to be hard. The only thing going for us is it is a corner pin. So that makes
Right.
it a little easier, but it's still hard to
Yes.
get a wire on there.
Scotty,
So-
I don't see the email. Let me give you another email address.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay, yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Hang on.
50 mil is
Um,
doable with a steady hand. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done a lot
There's
more than
A
one.
lot, my resistor leads are wider than the spacing on the parts. You have to use like 30 gauge wire, otherwise it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
30 gauge wire works.
Yeah.
I've
One of-
rewired an entire chip that was at
Yeah.
50
One of the
mil.
things that John and I were talking about, we talked about this at DCC, but to do some of there's a lot of things that the GPS chip and the SI chip do that either have to be parameterized, or if you want to be able to get to things like TEC, we'll have to program that. Not program it, but we have to ask for it, set the parameters so that it outputs it.
But what I was going to offer too is I have built a test program to just rotate LEDs on the development board.
Yeah.
And actually it does a loopback test, which you won't be able to do without the loopback boards, but you don't care about that because all the boards that I sent out already passed the loopback tests.
Right.
So they're already tested. But it has if I send you the QSF file and the .v file, the .v file is a good starting point. It has all the pins defined in the comments. Took forever to make it. So it would be a good starting point. And then at the beginning of the file, I have a section that is reserved for poor man's SVN. So basically, if you make any changes to it, you put your initials in, you put the date, and you put the changes you made. And a lot of times what I'll do is I will use a double asterisk or a cross or some notation to say, okay, every place I made this change is marked with the double asterisk.
Okay.
If it's an extensive change, then you don't want to bother with that. But if you're just making tweaks and you find a bug and you want to fix it, you want to tell the person, hey, this bug was fixed on this line, then that's an easy way. And then you can just search for that 1, 2, 3, 4 asterisk. And then you can
I would like to have that.
Yeah.
Code.
So I told Tom I'd send it to him. I'll send it to you too. And then as far as John goes, I'm thinking what we want to do is once you figure out what the proper register values are to set the thing up, we want to code that into the FPGA so it comes up and just blasts it out one of the I2C ports.
Right.
So
And it's really all I2C settings is really what it is.
Right. So I was going to say is then he'll need a board for that if he wants to do that, because obviously. So, okay, Jules, I sent that message again without the attachments. So that may be what was causing the trouble. I'll send it again to that address you gave me.
Okay.
If I can find it here.
Look for it. I sent it on the chat.
Okay, got it. Okay, now I'll send it to that address too. And you obviously don't need the pictures, so.
Right.
I can get rid of those and because it was about 4 megabytes.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a problem for your.
Shouldn't be, but it could have been.
Okay, send it to the new address too. So.
Yeah. I checked junk mail folder, nothing's in there, so.
Okay, that's weird. So it wouldn't
Yeah,
get
it
through.
is.
So. Anyway, anything else been going on this week? No, I've been working on another project I'm ripping my hair out over because I can't get the FPGA to program. It won't, the JTAG port doesn't work. And I have 3 boards and it doesn't work on any of them. And I'm kind of at a loss to figure out why it's not loading. So I've got to fix that. And
Is
it's,
that
by the
this?
way, pardon me?
Is that this project?
No, this is another project. I'm using an ARIA 10, the very one that we're going to use. So it's going to be nice to figure out why it doesn't work.
Yes.
Because
yeah,
it's going to be the next board that we do.
Did you did you say too though that the actual data engines are supposed to be made by now?
They are, actually, they're done. I have to go pick them up.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome. Are you bringing a bottle of champagne?
Probably not to the CM.
Take the bottle of champagne and break it over my head. Christen me as officially done. I told John Ackerman when he asked me a question, he says, well, I got this great board here. Now, what do I do with it?
Right.
And I just wrote him back and said, my job's done. Have a nice day.
Say,
How
I
many,
do want,
how many of the actual data engines did you make?
I believe we made 12.
Okay.
10 or 12.
Okay.
12,
So-
yeah, because I
So
wanted
not
to be able
not the full 25, but
right,
more
because
than-
we had the DE adapters and we don't really have enough peripheral boards to go around all those. And we're going to have, a dozen people or so working on those and a dozen people on the real thing. So that this allows us to use all 25 RF boards and clock modules. So
great.
I didn't think it was a point. And besides that, they turned out to be phenomenally more expensive than we bid originally. So it was, and we bid this, 2 years ago, and for a quantity of 25. But if we had to do that, then we'd be paying a fortune for these boards. And my opinion was they would be sitting on the shelf somewhere because we don't have enough motherboards to go around. So, so we decided to opt for a slightly lower number, so that together we have 25. We should have 25. In fact, I think it is 13. 13 and 12 are the numbers. So 12 DE adapters. Actually, I'm taking that back. I made 15 DE adapters and I made 12 data engines. So, in fact, it has to be. In fact, it has to be. Yeah, that's right. Because the adapters don't have an FPGA on them. Because they use the development cards. So I was going to say they had a total 25 because that's how many FPGAs I have, but that's not right. Because now I have some extra FPGAs. I think I'll go sell them on eBay for $2,000 each. Fun, some more fun stuff for us.
Because we're not.
I just got the second address email that came through.
Okay, and still not the first one, huh?
Nope. Which is interesting, but I also received the board set this week, so I'll put that together and then do some photos of the board and the phone plug and so on mounted in the 1.5 inch. So we can get that as part of the instruction assembly.
I took photos of the stuff that I sent you, so I can put that in the electronics section of the manual. Show them how to solder stuff together, and then and I kept back about 5 sets of boards, and for us to use amongst ourselves. And so Bill, I haven't sent, is Bill still here? I haven't sent Bill's out yet, but momentarily. And then whoever else needs a board set, if we're doing, writing the manual or testing or whatever, we'll have some just in case. Because I don't like to have none, because that makes it really difficult.
Fine business, by the way. I'm here, I heard you.
Oh, okay.
Did you see too that the Kiwi SDR went out of production?
I'd heard that, but I heard that they were moving to a Lattice FPGA instead and going to continue to produce it. Is that not true?
Yeah, I'd heard something like that.
Really? I haven't heard that.
No, according to the, I forgot the gentleman who actually originated. According to his note, he's done with it. He's spent a number of years. He doesn't have any more energy for it. There was some warnings against clones made in China that weren't, didn't work. But that's the last I saw.
Yeah, I can relate to being burnt out. That's hardware is different now than it used to be. It's not near as much fun. So now that we got all this hardware, we'll work on FPGAs, right, Dave?
Yeah, right. We'll try. All my setups are all gone because I've had enough hardware updates since we started the project that I have to rebuild everything.
Well, I'm looking forward to as soon as we sell the house here, which we don't have an offer yet, but as soon as we get one, we'll be out of here. Then I'll be in an RV for the next 5 months, 6 months, So I'm not going to really have any ability to do hardware. It's
Right.
going to be coding is all I'm going to be able
Coding.
to do, which is fine, which is what we need to
Okay.
do.
Yes.
So
If Tom's still here, I'd like him. He was saying he had some notes on setup. I'd like to get a copy of whatever you have. Because I'm finding it challenging to set up what I used to use all the time.
I'm not sure I understand. Set up for what?
This is for Quartus and
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes.
I'd recommend going to CentOS 7 rather than
Okay.
Ubuntu. But you need to put it on a real machine, not a virtual machine.
Yeah. I tried it
Unless-
on one. I did try it on one machine and it wouldn't install, but the machine's a little old. I'll have to take one of my newer machines and
Okay, you can do it on a virtual machine, provided that the USB port that the programmer's on can be passed through to the virtual machine from the OS. If my server can't do that, so I have to have a real. And currently, I've got it on Ubuntu 20, and there's instructions on the TangerinerSDR on the modifications you have to make in order to get it to install on Ubuntu. There's a bunch of monkeying around you have to do with symlinks and other things to get it to come up and run, but it does come up and run on 20.
Okay.
yeah, one of the things that we found out was it's best to start with a fresh install.
Yeah.
It saves you a lot of headaches, because my business partner loves to install everything under the sun and he runs into all kind of trouble. But I go in, I install it right out of the fresh version, and then I install it and it's much easier.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. But I was looking at the CentOS, and there were 3 different versions of CentOS 7 that were each about 2 years apart with the dates on them. Do you have any recommendation on which one to use?
That
Do
would
you use
be
the current one?
That would be a calm question. He has installed it on 7, and I would ask him the version. The only one I'm running on right now is Ubuntu 20.04.
Okay.
And I wouldn't try it on any later version than that, because I suspect it's not going to work on any later versions.
Yeah.
Of Ubuntu?
Yeah.
Yeah, the structure of the OS has changed considerably, and I think the older Quartus code doesn't run under that. They've closed up a lot of holes, and closing those holes also made the other software not work as well.
Yeah,
or not work at all.
The problem is that the software and development environment uses Eclipse, and Eclipse became incompatible, I think, with Ubuntu in a recent version.
Yes.
The problems stem from Eclipse using Java 8, and you have to have the Java 8 runtime, and there's the only way to do that is you have to symlink a bunch of things to get it to run. And then with that, the software environment crashes quite frequently for no reason at all. I'm hopeful that it would be more stable on CentOS 7 because it may have, CentOS 7 may be old enough to be based upon Java 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, CentOS was the original version that Altera recommended for.
Yeah, and it
One of
goes
them.
back to about 2012 is when it first came out, and then there've been some update versions.
Yeah, Dave, you were going to set up a Git repository for the code. Have you done that?
Not yet, but I will.
Okay, the one thing I'm worried about, and I don't know, is that Quartus and Eclipse have a version control system built inside of them that is shielded from the user. And so whenever
So-
you make changes, it internally commits. And if you have a bunch of internal commits, and then you push that to GitHub, which has its own system for internal commits, I don't know if there's going to be a commit
So here's
explosion or not.
Here's what happened with the Annan versions of Hermes. They just committed the QFC files, I think. They just put those on GitHub.
Okay.
And so
What do Dave?
basically you can't look at anything unless you have Quartus. I mean, early on, you could look at the individual Verilog files, but then after Hermes and a lot of those versions, they just put their
So the
the
QA
file from Quartus up.
Yeah, they use the Quartus archive.
Yeah.
QAR, the archive file.
QA, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's all that's stored on the Tapper open HPSDR site for
Okay.
those later versions of this
yeah, and depending on how you configure it, you can not store critical information in that QAR file,
Yes.
which will not enable you to recreate the.
Right.
So we don't use the Quartus internal version control system.
Right.
What we do is we take the root directory and we zip it.
Yep.
And and you can actually take the database files and delete them if you want something that's smaller. But if you want to make it work exactly the same, and if you use any kind of recompile, directed recompile, and you have to preserve those files. But it's big, but disk space is cheap, and I don't know how much we're going to have on a online storage.
Yeah.
But,
I've zipped up just the file structure for the current project, and let me see what size it is. It is it is 150 megabytes for the zip of the entire project, software, Verilog, everything that's in there, and it's about 5,500 files.
So it's big.
Yeah, but a lot of those files, are folders like OA, OB, OC, OD, OE. And what all those are the SVN versioning system folders and SVN version files inside.
Which means you could strip them out.
You might on Quartus. I don't know that you can do that on Eclipse.
Okay.
So, and so for now, that's why I'm wondering if we have a ton of version controlled files and we put them on another version control system, if every time we do a commit, it tries to change 4,000 things. And if it does, it might cause problems with Git. I don't know. The other method is to use the binary blob method, which is just to zip up the project and say next, and put it in there without, incrementally versioning the files. Right. But I think we need to put the project in a way that somebody can unzip it, and if they have Quartus, they can run the tools.
Yes.
I'd prefer that if possible.
Yeah, and I think that the source files, like the QSF file that has the pinouts and the pin definitions in it, that's the critical file. All of the source files, the .v files, those are critical files. If we can at least get it to the point where you can load those and then recreate what someone had, even if it's not going to be exactly the same because it's going to be, a reroute, but at least it comes from the same source. And I think that's going to be reasonable enough because, you're relying on the software to take the same source files and give you a reasonable object file or POP and soft files with multiple different compiles.
Right.
And that's generally going to be the case, unless we start running into timing problems.
Yeah, there are settings that have to be changed to make that work. There are mods to the drivers. There's a bunch of things in there. And there are configuration files that are changed and that have absolute addresses. So there's some things, I've tried to keep a notes file. So when you hand a zip to somebody, it's unzip it where you want and then go hand edit, the
Okay,
following XML files.
But Tom, if you have an identical setup and you made the mods that you suggest, and all we do is replace the source files, then you shouldn't have to do anything else, right?
Yeah, it depends. Certain setting files have these hard-coded addresses in them.
But you wouldn't be changing the setting files if you're just changing source files.
You would unless you put /home/tom/name of project on your Scotty system, it won't work. You have to actually go in and edit full path names inside the settings file, or it does not work.
Okay, but if I have the settings file set up for home Scotty and I copy the source file from home Tom, all I'm copying is the source code. So I'm going to put it in the Scotty directory, not in the Tom directory, and I'm all set up for the Scotty directory, so it should work then, right?
Well, sometimes it does
until there's a change to the board settings file, which can happen if you change one parameter on an SPI or one parameter on an I2C, you're going to get a new board support file.
Or add drivers or add any kind of, right?
Right. So you're gonna have to hand edit those files. So we may be able to write a sed script or something like that to go in and chop through the files and change them.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea to try to do that.
Maybe enlist Dan's help to write scripts.
Yeah.
Script.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm trying to set up, but I have two newer machines that are running Linux, running Linux Mint, and I used to run Quartus on Linux Mint and it was fine, but that was, 8 years ago. So
you thinking it might not work today?
By Tom's advice, I don't think it's based on Ubuntu, but it's Ubuntu 21 or 22.
So it might not work.
So I don't think it works.
Be too new.
Yeah. So, and then I have some old machines that are over, 12 years old or something.
Now be careful at what machines you try to run it on, because you might be waiting a long time for a compile.
Yes. So I need to maybe go over to the university surplus and find a 2 or 3 year old machine.
I just posted a note in the chat about a computer that I picked up here that's it's a used Dell. The guy's got like a recycle place, and it's got 16 gig of memory in it. And I loaded Ubuntu 20.04, 22.04. I put 20.04, but it's 22, the most recent one on the thing. And it's got an i5 processor, and I ran the sysbench speed test on it, and it reports like a speed of 10 when a Pi 4 reports a speed of 29.
Yeah.
So
Did you get it to load Quartus?
I haven't tried to load Quartus.
Yeah, and that's
it depends on
sticky part.
How much memory do you need? This has only got I said it's $175, but that's with 256 gig SSD drive, and he would configure it with whatever size drive you want.
Right.
You just have to pay up whatever the difference is. And so then I don't know how much memory Quartus needs. But.
Well, it's kind of like you pay less, you buy less. It takes it, like Scotty said, you sit there for a while.
And how much
if
memory
it can
do you
do
need?
it?
Well, all of it.
He'll also configure
more.
an i7. If you go to an i7 processor, it'll be quite a bit more, but I'm not sure an
Right.
i7 is that much more powerful than an
Well,
i5.
it's got 4 cores instead of 2.
But it does
Yeah.
have more cores, but how many are you going to really be using?
Yeah, I'm
Some
running,
i5s are 4 core.
yeah, I'm running Quartus
i7
on
you
a,
get eight cores.
I'm running Quartus on a 10-year-old Core i7. And a complete build from scratch takes about 14 or 15 minutes.
And that's the 4th generation, right?
It's a third generation,
Okay.
and but it's about 14, 15 minutes, so it's not that bad.
And I'm running on a 4th generation i7 also. But my Linux machine has 64 gig of RAM, so it has significant amount of memory.
Those
Yeah,
times are pretty important because if you're developing Verilog code, you get an idea and you go build this thing out and you want to try it. And by the time you get it loaded into your hardware and take a look at it, you may burn an hour and have to go do it all over again.
Yep.
I think it's funny when I first started doing Xilinx parts back in 1987 or 88, the Motorola actually bought me a microchannel, an IBM Model 80, microchannel, fastest 386 you could get at the time. And Quartus was set up, I don't think it was Quartus, it was called something else, but it took so long to compile. One of the options was that you could just turn it on and have it do repeat compiles and then walk away and leave it overnight. And then you'd come back and you'd pick of the 4 or 5 or however many compiles you got, you pick the most optimum timed one and throw the rest away. But it was really set up to fire it off and walk away and come back to the next day. And believe me, there were times when it took hours and hours and hours to compile. So 15 minutes to me is good. An hour is too long. So want to have something like Bob says, you want to try something, you don't want to sit there and wait an hour or two to see if it's going to work.
That must have been a Speed Demon 16 megahertz 386.
It was, I think it was 20 megahertz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
well,
that's megahertz.
And I had 16 meg of EMS memory on a separate card plugged in. So
that was a lot then.
It was a kick butt machine in 1987, but now it's like a Raspberry Pi has more power than that does.
Yeah. Anyway, I have to go, but I'll be still building my system. That's my next task. So we'll see how far I can get on one of my machines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Scotty, if you have a moment, would you look at the FPGA architecture document I uploaded?
Sure.
All right.
It's on the Tangerine side, right?
Yeah, it's on the Tangerine document site. I'll find a link and put it in the chat.
And Scotty, anything you want to put on the Tangerine? I mean, you can put it there, but I can too, if you need me to do it.
Under working documents, Tom?
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, Tom, or I guess Dave left, right? That's going to say that clock module schematic's not up there. I was thinking the Magpie, that schematic is up there.
Okay. I don't see the file right now.
Is it under the working documents folder? Is it under white papers maybe?
It should be under working documents, but I could have bombed it and put it in the wrong place.
What's the title?
It was something like FPGA architecture.
Okay, I don't see it.
Okay, hang on. I think I found it. Okay, it's there it is. It's Tangerine or TSDR _DE _software_architecture.
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
So the architecture is high level and the test plan is kind of more detailed.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look. I got it loaded here.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All
Scotty,
right.
did you find my shipping address?
No, actually I did not. Because I owe you a Magpie too, right?
Yeah.
What am I sending you? Remind me.
Magpie and a development system.
Okay. And you got a DK board, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, DK meaning the
Intel board.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the Max 10 system.
Okay. And I'm gonna make myself a note since I seem to be so scatterbrained these days. I don't imagine what it's going to be like when I don't live in the house anymore.
You want me to just email it to you, or?
Yeah, why don't you do that? That's the easiest way because I'm only about 2 or 3 days behind on email, so it'll come in.
Very good. I'll just do that. Then you'll have an easy copy.
And just as general interest too, the ARDC has funded the Great Scott Gadgets SDR piece of test equipment they're working on. So you should hear some announcements of that's coming up soon. And they're funding it through Tapper, so we're kind of funneling the money over to them because we're a 501c3 and they have to, and they aren't. So they're going to build this piece of test gear. It looks pretty promising. I'm going to get on Mike Osmond's case and I want him to put some, build some excitement about it because it looks to be very interesting. And it's all going to be SDR based. So
you're good at money laundering.
Say.
Scotty, do you know, did they ever come out with their USB thing? I know they were looking at chip shortages. Great Scott.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
So yeah,
they were supposed to come out with a USB sniffer, more or less, a man in the middle USB, and it just kind of stopped because they couldn't get the parts.
That was like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, they can't get the parts.
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
Sounds real familiar. Makes me want to do software and firmware. Oh, wait, I get to do firmware now. Like I saw a guy's license plate holder today. And it says, at the top, it says, I'd rather be singing. At the bottom, it says, oh, wait, I am. And you heard that joke before. It says, if you're driving in your car, are you singing along? Are you singing? No. Are you whistling? No. Well, if you aren't doing either of those, then you're picking your nose. So.
Well, that's akin to our in our group. We say this is rocket science.
That's right. I know that was a great. There's great lines in movies like, "What do you think you are, a rocket scientist?" Well, yeah, actually, I am.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
Good idea. It's going downhill.